north. Further south, it's a calmer night with clear spells and some mist and fog to start the day across southern parts of England and the Midlands. Nevertheless, through Scotland, it's a cloudy start for many. Some brightness as the cloud breaks up to the east, but it's still a blustery picture across much of Scotland and Northern Ireland as we begin Tuesday with showery rain at times. The rain edging into Cumbria, northern parts of the Pennines, and an increase in the cloud coming along to parts of Wales, the north coast of Devon and Cornwall. But for much of East Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia and the south, it's a sunny start to Tuesday after any mist patches burn away. And then we keep those spells of sunshine into the afternoon, possibly a sunnier afternoon compared with Monday. But we do have this zone of cloud and rain that's tending to peter out through the day across central parts of the UK. Brighter skies to the north, feeling fresher. 26 Celsius, though, in the southeast. And those temperatures are going to climb day by day through the rest of the week as high pressure extends its influence across the whole of the UK. So most places are going to be bright and dry on Wednesday, some cloud and a bit more of a breeze in the north of Scotland. But elsewhere, with that strong June sunshine, temperatures rising each day, peaking by the weekend into the low 30s.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Yes, well, get ready for Patrick Christys tonight, late edition. Unsurprisingly, pretty much all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages are leading with the grooming gang issue. And even The Guardian is saying now that ethnicity was ignored. So we'll talk about all of that. A couple of other stories here. Apparently Scotland is going to dump its rubbish in England, which doesn't really seem right, does it? And Israel is pushing Iran to the brink. They've taken their state TV off air because they've bombed the living daylights out of it. Will it be long before the Ayatollah is toppled? All that and more.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash. So make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christys, and this is Patrick Christys Tonight, late edition. Breaking now.
I think she's right, and that's why there'll be a national inquiry. It'll be a statutory inquiry. It'll go wherever it needs to go.
Slight spelling error there that you might have noticed. Anyway, it's the mother of all U-turns as the government finally caves in to having a grooming gang inquiry after calling people far right.
Calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
Well, as you would expect, this story is dominating all of the front pages, but we'll be bringing you something that you might have missed with the journalist who broke the story. Meanwhile... Well, the Israeli Air Force has blown up an Iranian state television station while sirens are currently sounding over Tel Aviv amid a new wave of Iranian missiles being launched towards Israel. We'll be going live to the G7 very soon.
We all know the great Prime Minister of the UK, and we just signed a document. This is... Sorry about that.
Well, yes, moments ago, President Donald Trump announced that the US-UK trade deal has been finalised in the UK's latest Brexit win. But some other news. So, we might have sold out smoky bacon crisps to the European Union. Shocker. Well, joining me this evening is my wonderful panel. We've got GB News contributor and comedian, the fantastic Leo Kearse, journalist and broadcaster Christo Foufas, and political commentator Andy Twelves. Right, loads to go out today, but now it's your headlines, Tatiana.
Cue the top stories. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has vowed to come after adults who engage in penetrative sex with a child under 16, so they face the most serious charge of rape. She also says the government will now make it a formal requirement for ethnicity and nationality data to be collected for all sexual abuse cases. It comes as a report into sexual abuse carried out by grooming gangs in England and Wales is released. Setting out next steps following Baroness Louise Casey's probe into grooming gangs, Ms Cooper told the House of Commons this afternoon. Baroness Casey's first recommendation is we must see children as children. And Sir Keir Starmer has urged British nationals in Israel to register their presence there as countries step up efforts to bring back stranded citizens. Britons already in the country now face difficulties getting home with the airspace closed due to the conflict with Iran. Israel's Iron Dome defence system was breached overnight as Iran launched renewed strikes with at least 8 people killed and nearly 300 injured. The Israeli Prime Minister says Israel has full aerial operational control over the Iranian capital Tehran following 4 days of strikes. Yesterday, Israeli strikes killed the chief of Iran's armed forces intelligence unit. Sir Keir Starmer says the focus of the G7 meetings this week will be on the de-escalation of the conflict.
Shared concern about the risk of escalation, obviously, shared concern about the nuclear programme of Iran, but absolutely a focus on how we de-escalate this, and that'll be a central focus as we go into the talks today, get that de-escalation. And, of course, all of us are giving advice to our citizens, for British nationals in Israel.
Elsewhere, an Air India Boeing 7878 Dreamliner had to return to Hong Kong mid-flight after a suspected technical issue. The passenger jet, the same type as the aircraft involved in last week's tragedy in Ahmedabad, was bound for New Delhi but turned back after the pilot had raised an issue. The flight to A1315 took off from Hong Kong at 12:16 and landed just over an hour later, according to tracking data. An Air India spokesperson says the airline hasn't yet established if there was a technical issue, but the pilot had suspected something. Meanwhile, the families of 3 of the British victims of last week's Air India crash in Ahmedabad have criticised the UK government's response to the disaster, saying they feel utterly abandoned. That crash killed 229 passengers and 12 crew. 1 person on board the flight, a Brit, survived. In a statement, the families of some of the victims said they're calling on the UK government to immediately step up its presence and response on the ground in Ahmedabad. And those are all of your GB News headlines for now.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight, late edition. Look, let's get straight in to Tuesday's front pages. The first paper that we've got is the Metro. Blindness, ignorance, prejudice, defensiveness. That's what they say has led up to the ongoing issue with Pakistani rape gangs. Just go to the Independent. They go for too much denial, too little justice. Fascinating now to see a lot of the left-wing papers really doing a about turn on the grooming gang issue, wasn't it? Trying to ignore it for a long time. But the Eye, generation of girls let down by police. Councils and MPs who ignored UK grooming gangs. I would also say large swathes of the British media as well. But anyway, Telegraph, asylum seekers behind new grooming gang cases. I mean, this is the kind of headline that I just wonder, you know, at some point, is there just going to be civil unrest, really? I mean, that's the thing. You welcome... Well, you don't welcome them, but they come to Britain anyway, and then they go on to do stuff like that. But anyway, The Guardian, Israel warns Iranians to flee as deadly air raids continue. And Daily Mail, conspiracy of silence over race doomed thousands of girls to abuse. So there we are. The Express, let's uncover a lot of truth in sex gangs inquiry. And we can do The Mirror as well, the Daily Mirror. Grooming gang scandal, they say never again. Never again. We'll go for The Times. Ethnicity brushed aside in grooming gang inquiries. Right, OK, so look, there is a running theme here. Now, very shortly, I'm going to go to a journalist who actually broke a really big story on this today, so I'll get that to you. But yeah, Christy, I mean, the big thing that shines through here for me anyway is that now, basically, finally, every single national newspaper is talking about race.
Yes, which was something that was always denied before. It was always something that was seen as taboo. And, of course, the report itself said child exploitation is horrendous, whoever commits it, but there have been enough convictions across the country of groups of men from Asian ethnic backgrounds to have warranted closer examination. So, of course, now they're all having to do this about turn. And, I mean, it's just so depressing that you're not racist if you're looking into what is a fact and what is a statistical fact based on evidence. And maybe this will see the tide on this turn. I hope so, because for too long, and I have to say it was a lot of Labour councils that did this, wanted to put community relations, social cohesion, multiculturalism, whatever you call it, over and above making sure people got justice and were heard.
Yeah, I mean, the Sun's front page, which we actually didn't show there, is Grooming Gangs Report, betrayed by the state.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like maybe finally we're actually going to get something done about this now.
Yeah, and you can sort of understand why Labour and why the establishment did brush it under the carpet at the time. If you look at 2017, 85% of British Muslims voted for Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. So if there were still 85% voting for the Labour Party, I'm not sure they'd have announced this inquiry. I'm not sure they'd be in such a hurry to uncover it and make people reveal who was culpable. So that's interesting. I also think that they're still obfuscating around race. I mean, when they say it's Asian, it's not Cambodian guys running around. You know what I mean? It's not Japanese guys. It's not even Pakistani Muslims, to be fair. It's a particular subset. It's people from the Mirpur Valley in Pakistan who, they built a dam there. So there were 60,000, 70,000 came over to post-industrial British towns to provide workforce, after the war. And they're from really close-knit tribal communities, really, inward-looking and quite medieval.
That, can I just say very quickly, that leads to two really important points as well. If any ethnicity is over-represented in a particular crime, it should be looked into. If that ethnicity is also not being investigated, that's doubly important.
It is. Andy, sorry, I'm going to come to you in a minute, but I'm just being told in no uncertain terms that I have to go to our political editor, Christopher Hope. Let's just remind ourselves of what happened moments ago.
We just signed a document. This is... sorry about that.
Thank you very much. This now implements on car tariffs and aerospace, our really important agreement. And so this is a very good day for both of our countries.
I'm joined now by our political editor, Christopher Hope, live from a lake in Alberta, Canada. Yes, there we go. Well, the G7 summit has been taking place. Absolutely stunning, Chris. And the view's not bad either.
Patrick, welcome to Lake Minnewanka. I'll just let Joe show you around. There's an amazing view there of a mountain behind us. It's a 500-feet lake here, huge trout at the bottom. Sir Keir Starmer, a mile or so away from me, has just announced a trade deal, or been signed finally, with Donald Trump. On that deal, they've got a deal on cars, removing tariffs from that, and also from the aerospace sector down to zero. So a big moment for Sir Keir Starmer. You might be surprised by what Donald Trump said about Sir Keir Starmer. He said he's slightly more liberal than me. Well, we can all agree with that, can't we? But for some reason, Donald Trump, he said, we get along. He's done a very good job, he says. So the special relationship is going well here for Sir Keir Starmer on the global stage. You've got issues, of course, with the rape gangs inquiry announced back in Britain. But globally, Sir Keir Starmer's had a win today with Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you go. Christopher, thank you so much. I mean, it looks unbelievable where you are. I've been watching it all day on and off, and it's just the sacrifices you make for work, eh? There we go. All right, Chris.
I'll do my best for you, Patrick.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. All right, mate. Take care. We'll probably catch up tomorrow. Christopher Hope there, our political editor in Canada. OK, well, we might as well just carry on with that then, I suppose. So it looks like we've signed a trade deal with America, and we don't really know the small print yet, though, do we? I suppose?
It's huge. It's huge. No, I mean, I think we've got to wait until the details come out about this because, you know, I mean, they've been doing a lot of tidying up of what the Tories left just before the finish line and been taking it over the last year, and I think it's just kind of got to see what the details are before we celebrate.
What has Keir Starmer got on Donald Trump that this love fest seems to happen? Every time they're in each other's company, it seems to go so well, and you would expect that they would loathe each other.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
It's good, but again, though, with that always just highlights to me how pointless Keir Starmer was in opposition. You know, for years it was like, you know, basically says he hates Trump, and then the first opportunity, the first time he meets him, he invites him around for dinner with the king.
It's almost like he's a politician, isn't it? Yeah, I think Trump loves Britain, and he loves the sort of, you know, the pomp and the ceremony and the history. He loved, you know, remember he was shown photographs with the Queen and all that sort of stuff on a documentary. I think he really, you know, he's got a connection to this country that, you know, maybe Joe Biden didn't have as much.
Yeah.
But and also, by the way, Keir Starmer, you've got to give him credit where it's due, and it doesn't happen often, but bringing out that invite in front of the media from the king, that was a genius move. That's precisely how you deal with Donald Trump.
Well, I've actually been given a little bit more detail on this trade deal now, so this won't be on any of your front pages because it's just happened, really. I believe that it's British aerospace manufacturers to benefit from a UK-US trade deal, as further details are announced. So the aerospace sector is going to see tariffs removed completely as further progress is made on the UK-US deal. Benefits of deal to be felt by UK auto sector also. So car and aerospace here. They'll be able to export to the US by the end of the month under the newly lowered 10% tariff quota. It's going to save hundreds of millions, apparently, annually for plane and car makers with lowered tariffs and protect tens of thousands of jobs. Right, so bits of detail there.
But also, though, no detail on steel, no change on British steel at the moment. That's still going to stay at the 25% tariff that it's at the moment. So a lot of people are obviously a bit worried still about that.
This is great news for Rolls-Royce and BAE Systems. So Britain really does have world-leading technology companies in the aerospace sector, and also, you know, Rolls-Royce do small modular reactors, all kinds of stuff that the world desperately needs right now.
Yeah, I just worry what he's giving away in return, though. It's like, you know, to see how the other ones have gone. It's like, hang on a minute, so why are there suddenly loads more Americans in Scotland?
We're going to have to buy American chocolate. That stuff is like eating candles.
I was on another Chagos. I hope we don't find that the Isle of Wight is now sort of American territory when we wake up tomorrow.
Well, just there'll be something, and you'll go, oh, well, can I tell you about that? Can I tell you about that?
But it's a great success, and it's a great win for us all.
Because if we hadn't given away our sovereign territory, it would have been attacked. You know, definitely would have been attacked. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, so far though, I don't think that's necessarily this applies to this deal, but you know, the Indian one, and with Mauritius obviously, and the Spanish one with Gibraltar, he was was just prepared to sign things that the Tories refused.
I think just get it going again. Do you know what I mean? Like the Tory government towards those last couple of years were just dying and weren't really. They didn't have the drive to do anything because they weren't going to get the credit for it. So I think it is just getting through that blockade of just rubbish that they left, and you know. We will get some pretty good deals like that. Looks pretty good for British workers.
It does. I mean, that's all we know about so far, and it's great.
Apart from if you're in the steel industry.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, that's been, you know, not great for, you know, many years.
Well, then maybe you need to have a deal that includes it.
Just on that, though, I think the timing of the grooming gang announcement, with Sir Keir Starmer being in Canada, you know, with Trump and Macron and all of that stuff, he apparently had this grooming gang report, which is on the front of every newspaper tomorrow, so maybe we can have a little look at some of them, but... yeah, I mean, he's had the report for 10 days, apparently, not mentioned it, and then they've released it on the day that he's just legged it off to Canada. Yeah. So it's a bit sus.
Yeah, I mean, I did read, because I've been suspicious as well, but I did read that Keir Starmer said, I read the full report, all 200 pages, and it was like the scales fell from his eyes. I genuinely believe that he didn't realise the extent of the problem. I think if you're on the left, it's very easy to believe all the sort of the platitudes and the propaganda that's in The Guardian saying, oh, no, it's all white people, no, this is just racists and far right. And you hear those dog whistle terms, and you're happy to push it under the carpet, especially when nobody's shouting for one.
It's far white and far right in their eyes. It's both of those things, and that's true. And that is the problem. And this is why, again, it's really important that these words are so important. Words about calling Donald Trump an outright racist and a neo-Nazi, which is what we got from David Lammy, and then you end up having to deal with him. Calling people far right, who are literally just pointing out that there might be a problem here. Can we have a conversation about it? And then you end up actually agreeing with what they were saying. It's so important that politicians actually moderate what they say and think before they speak. Maybe that's me not thinking about what I say. It's complete fantasy.
Do you think he's tried to get away from this by going to Canada?
I think it's probably something to do with it, to be honest. Like, you know, the number 10 grid is extremely complex and they will have scheduled this purposely. But I don't think it is. I don't think he's scared of the results. You know, he's accepted all the recommendations and, you know, he's implemented the inquiry. So he's not, you know, running away and denying the recommendations. But I think Leo actually raised a really good point that, you know, as a man of the left, it is quite easy to get insular. And if you see, you know, people like, you know, your man Tommy Robinson talking about it, he was one of the, you know, big guys shouting about it. But then he'd also put something heinous on the back end of it, so it's quite easy to dismiss. So I think a lot of people on the left did just see nutters like Tommy talking about it.
Heinous on it, because I've not really seen anything that he said that, you know, was particularly.
He wants to ban Islam, which is.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't seen anything
very good,
disagree with.
Come on. Tommy Robinson is objectively a racist man that hates Muslims.
What did he say? What did he say that's racist?
Oh, heinous things about all brown people. He calls all brown people pervert.
Then how come he's got so many brown mates?
Oh, yeah, sure. What?
He works alongside, you know, brown people. I don't understand. I know there's a lot of, you know, there's certainly a lot of...
He doxed a 14-year-old brown lad, accused him of heinous things that he hadn't done. That lad had to go into witness protection. Like, he's done heinous things. He used to beat up police officers. He's done immigration fraud. You know, he nicked a load of money off his fundraising supporters. He's a bad guy.
I think we're just straying into quite dicey legal territory here when it comes to...
Well, he would know, to be fair, you know, with the immigration fraud, he would know.
Let's just whiz it on, because obviously he's not here to defend himself, and we didn't know we were going to talk about that, so we haven't put anything to him yet.
What's a really important point about this, whether you love or loathe Tommy Robinson and whether you think he's extreme or whatever he might be, when we don't talk about these things, and when everyone is called a racist who brings it up, that's when people start going to those fringes to get the information and to hear people who are actually talking about it. So that's why it's so important.
I was a victim of it. I mean, like a few years ago, I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago, I think, probably longer, actually. You know, I kind of just drank the Kool-Aid, really, and just had this quite lazy view of Tommy Robinson, I think, where it's just like, oh, he's a bit racist, And actually, I've just changed. Yeah. I just think he was right about the grooming gangs. I don't agree with everything he's ever said or done, clearly. I don't agree with anything everyone's said or done. But I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he's been doing on grooming gangs.
Well, he was one of the first people to be talking about it. He's not done some brilliant things since, but you're right. You're right.
Well, we are going to have to whiz on. Coming up, we'll be speaking to the journalist who has broken a groundbreaking story about a Labour MP after his comments in Parliament earlier today. So, yes, don't want to miss that. Stay tuned.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Let's go to our man Adam Cherry, who's at Waterloo Station this morning, to tell us more about this. Are you thinking of changing jobs, Adam?
What, to become a train driver? Yeah, I think, I don't know, I don't think I'll be very good at it. But nonetheless, those who might be are the 18-year-olds who are, the 18-year-olds who are now eligible. They have permission to start the training. I mean, the argument is that the average age of a train driver at the moment is, I think, about 40, try and get my words out here, 48 years old. And, you know, several thousands of them are coming up for retirement in the next few years. And so reducing the age from 20 to 18 is going to help stop all those last-minute cancellations that bug so many of us on our work commutes throughout the week. And try and put some slack in the system. Of course, at the moment, it is 20. People are making decisions for their careers at the age of 18 anyway, so lots of them are just sort of missing the opportunity. Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, says it's basically about future-proofing the transport network, and it's a pretty effective and easy way to do it. It has overwhelming support within DFT, within Department of Transport and industry leaders. I'll just read you a quick quote from Mick Whelan, who is the General Secretary of ASLEF, which is the Train Drivers Union. At the moment, young people who want to become train drivers leave school at 18, get other jobs, as I was saying, and miss out on an industry. Miss out as the industry doesn't wait around until they turn 20 to find a career. So hopefully it'll stop all those last-minute cancellations which annoy everyone so much.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. Looks a nice day where he is there.
Yeah, looks lovely, doesn't it? I think it is cold, though.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight Late Edition. So Sean Davies is the Labour MP for Telford, home to one of Britain's most notorious grooming gang scandals, which is across all of the front pages tomorrow, stood up in the House of Commons today and pointed the finger at Amber Rudd and Rishi Sunak, claiming they refused to launch a statutory inquiry into what happened in his constituency.
The reason we did a local-based review was because the then Home Secretary Amber Rudd and the then local government minister Rishi Sunak refused to provide a statutory inquiry into Telford. And that's why we worked together with the Police and Crime Commissioner, who happens to be a Conservative, and people from across the political spectrum to take this out of the party political field and try and find answers in our small part of the world.
But back in 2016, just 1 year after the Home Office revealed that Telford had the highest rate of child sex crimes in the UK, Sean Davies himself, then the council leader, signed a letter asking Amber Rudd not to investigate. Yeah. So I'm joined now by the journalist who actually uncovered this story. It's the commissioning editor for The Spectator. It's Lara Brown. Lara, thank you very much, and well done, by the way. So go on, talk me through it a little bit, really. What's you know, how bad is this for this guy?
I think this is proof that we can't really trust Labour on grooming gangs. This is a monumental betrayal by a man who let thousands of girls down when he was leader of a council over the course of 9 years and was rewarded last year with a seat. So just to give you a bit of a backstory here of what happens. Telford has been blighted by grooming gangs. An independent inquiry estimated that around 1,000 victims was a fair, measured and reasonable estimate. And so that's a really, really high number. Sean Davies was leader of the council, and the councils are expected to support victims. They run things like Kate, which is a service that supports victims, so they're really pivotal here. So Sean Davies would have been aware and up close with this issue. He becomes leader of the council in 2016. In 2016, Telford's first Conservative MP, a woman called Lucy Allen, meets survivors of child sexual exploitation, child grooming, and she realises this has been completely covered up and ignored. She's the first MP for Telford to ever mention grooming in Parliament, and she goes to PMQs in 2016 and asks for a statutory inquiry into grooming gangs. That's really important. A statutory inquiry means that the chair can compel witnesses to come forward. Yeah. So as you've been covering all evening, one of the issues here is the cover-up, is people doing nothing, people ignoring young girls. They're not going to want to talk to an inquiry, so you have to have statutory powers. Lucy goes to Amber Rudd. She asks for a statutory inquiry, something she pushes for. And the next thing that happens is a letter is published by Telford and Wrekin Council. The letter is signed by 10 men, no women, and Sean Davies is one of the signatories. And the letter says, there's a number of things. The thrust of it is it claims that because of a successful Ofsted review, after this shocking figure that, Telford has the most sex crimes of anyone in the UK, they don't need investigation. And they say, to quote, "We do not feel at this time that a further inquiry is necessary." That's a letter from Sean Davies and 9 others, people who, by the way, have also gone on to senior positions in Telford Council and politics, from Sean Davies to Amber Rudd. So for Sean Davies to then go into Parliament and claim that Telford didn't get a statutory inquiry and victims didn't get justice because Amber Rudd and Rishi Sunak refused to give a statutory inquiry is, I think, completely unforgivable. I also think it's untrue for him to say that he worked hard in his part of the world to get answers. If you follow closely the story of what happened with the independent inquiry into child sexual exploitation in Telford, which publishes in 2022 and was started in 2018, we see time and time again huge delays from Telford and Wrekin Council. They took over a year to even appoint a chair. So before that point, nothing at all could happen. They were delayed by 8 months in submitting any evidence or in submitting all the evidence they were asked for. And then when the report comes out, Tom Crowther writes that their corporate submission had gaps and duplicates in it, which hindered the process. So I don't think Sean Davies can be trusted on this issue. And I think the fact that Labour selected him to be an MP means I don't trust him.
Well, this is the thing.
This
is the thing. I mean, they're already not off to a great start with it. And there is, I think, if I was Labour, I think there would at least be the whiff of concern about what on earth this national inquiry is going to reveal and how many of their own MPs and formerly councillors, etc., are going to be really dragged into this. But Laura, thank you very much. Tremendous stuff there. Well done for getting that out there as well. And thank you for coming on Late Edition. Laura Brown there, the commissioning editor for The Spectator. I mean, that bloke's just stood up in Parliament and he's basically lied, according to Lara. It was quite shameless.
Yeah, it's shocking. And, it's incredible how politicians think that they can just get away with this. It's like a magician, throwing some magic dust in the air and then running away. It's insane. And I think a lot of people on the left, a lot of establishment politicians who are, partly culpable because they, avoided the issue, obfuscated, danced around it for whatever reason, they're going to be doing the same thing.
And what's interesting, I'm just looking at the some of the reporting on the report that Laura referenced there from 2022, and it actually says that in 2013 in Telford, there was a police inquiry. Girls as young as 13 were sexually exploited and groomed. And then following those convictions, authorities failed to understand the importance of maintaining focus in this area. By 2015, so the year before he wrote the letter saying we don't need an inquiry, both the council in Telford and the police had gone back almost a decade in their investigation, as in had not done enough. So it's so outrageous that he would say in 2016 we don't really need an inquiry.
Yeah, and I think this is the concern Laura's raised. We were speaking about it a bit earlier on. It just doesn't feel like Labour can maybe be trusted with this.
I think they probably can, but I think the point he raised about the Conservatives not responding to requests for a national inquiry. There were requests made for a national inquiry, not by him, and he should probably resign. I'll be honest.
Yeah, you cannot defend.
I think he's lied in the House of Commons. He's stood up and lied to the House. That's an offence within itself. And B, being almost complicit in that abuse in Telford. Those two separate things merit a resignation.
We've got a statement now. So again, I'll just say, this is on every front page tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot of chat. It's going to be dominating the news tomorrow as well. But a Labour spokesperson said the previous Conservative government rejected requests for an independent public review into child sexual abuse in Telford. Following these rejections, the council commissioned a locally led independent probe. After acting on the findings from this inquiry, the progress of the council's work under Sean Davies' leadership was found to be positive without exception and a model for safeguarding victims last year. The Tories sleepwalked through the appalling scandal. The Labour government is bringing forward the biggest child protection reforms in a generation. No more empty words or lessons learned. This is real action to keep children safe.
You make a really good point, though, about whether Labour can be trusted, because the issue that you have here is that a lot of these councils were Labour councils that were worrying about community cohesion. That's clearly why there has been a delay about wanting to get to the bottom of this. Can now Labour themselves be trusted to implement the recommendations of this report if it's Labour councils that were found to be failing?
OK.
How can you unreservedly say
I
yeah?
think so, yeah. I mean, Keir Starmer's a man of fact. He waited for the report to come out. He's implemented the recommendations. He'll wait for the inquiry and then he'll implement all the recommendations.
You said that Keir Starmer is a man of fact.
Oh, yeah, he objectively is. More than the lying Tories, who had 14 years to do something about this.
Well, they're not in power now. I mean,
well, no, they were in charge for 15 years. They were in charge for 15 years. They did absolutely FA.
So
I don't think it's really fair to say the Tories can be trusted.
But do you think that the past 11 months of Keir Starmer being Prime Minister has led you to say that Keir Starmer is a man of fact?
I think, his leadership has been much more honest than Boris Johnson's, Liz Truss's, any of his predecessors.
I know you may as well ask the pot plant rather than one of those. But the point I'm making is you don't think that he is in any way a dishonest man, and he's always a man of facts.
I think generally speaking, yeah.
OK.
All right.
I mean,
people can make their own
fuel
minds.
payment, U-turns. I mean, a man of facts telling us that the economy is doing so well that they can reverse the winter fuel payment, calling everyone far right when he's now joined them. When it comes to the grooming gangs situation, those are all facts, are they?
Well, I mean, the economy has gotten better. I think the decision to strip winter fuel payments was stupid in the first place.
But the economy is not doing good enough.
I think reacting to events isn't lying.
Press for time.
Like a wine glass.
Yeah, exactly. Just smash it. Anyway, right. Here is a reminder of the moment when an Islamic Republic of Iran state TV station was blown up live on air earlier today. Yeah, I mean, that was great, wasn't it, really, Leo? I just thought it was brilliant. I was like that. I mean, we think we've had the odd technical issue here. It's never...
We've never had war with Israel.
Yeah. I mean, this is it. We've never been nuked by the Israelis yet, anyway. But this is Tel Aviv, so that's just the sky, isn't it? Doesn't seem to be particularly busy there at the moment. Yeah. But on the front of a couple of newspapers tomorrow, they do mention it, say basically, they're warning Israel. Israel's warning Iran, basically. It's just saying, look, if you can, just get out of Iran because we're going to smash it to pieces. So it feels like maybe this is finally coming to a head. We might remove the Ayatollah.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen. Apparently, they had some sort of deal that they wouldn't take out the Ayatollah. They took out pretty much everyone else in the top brass. You can tell who the Mossad operatives are in Iran because they're the only people that haven't been taken out by these strikes. Yeah, they completely decapitated the military infrastructure, the chain of command. It's insane.
I don't know why they don't all live in bunkers. It just seems like, here's a nice apartment at the top of a high-rise building. But that's going to be a week before the Israelis blow it up, isn't it? And all right, sorry, I'm being shouted at now. Coming up, smoky bacon betrayal and chaos in Dunkirk. It's time for stories that are inside tomorrow's newspaper. It's Patrick Christys Tonight, late edition.
Hello and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Windy in the north overnight, particularly the far north of Scotland, with areas of cloud and some rain drifting south, although it will stall across central areas, leaving mostly fine conditions across southern parts of the UK because of this area of high pressure which is beginning to dominate. And that's going to extend countrywide later this week. But for the time being, we do have some weak weather fronts toppling in across the northern edge of that high, and those weather fronts have been bringing outbreaks of rain to central and northern Scotland through the day, the rain then sinking into southern Scotland and Northern Ireland overnight. Some heavy bursts associated with it and some strong winds in the far north. Further south, it's a calmer night with clear spells and some mist and fog to start the day across southern parts of England and the Midlands. Nevertheless, through Scotland, it's a cloudy start for many. Some brightness as the cloud breaks up to the east, but it's still a blustery picture across much of Scotland and Northern Ireland as we begin Tuesday with showery rain at times. The rain edging into Cumbria, northern parts of the Pennines, and an increase in the cloud coming along to parts of Wales, the north coast of Devon and Cornwall. But for much of East Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia and the south, it's a sunny start to Tuesday after any mist patches burn away. And then we keep those spells of sunshine into the afternoon, possibly a sunnier afternoon compared with Monday. But we do have this zone of cloud and rain that's tending to peter out through the day across central parts of the UK. Brighter skies to the north, feeling fresher. 26 Celsius, though, in the southeast. And those temperatures are going to climb day by day through the rest of the week as high pressure extends its influence across the whole of the UK. So most places are going to be bright and dry on Wednesday, some cloud and a bit more of a breeze in the north of Scotland. But elsewhere, with that strong June sunshine, temperatures rising each day, peaking by the weekend into the low 30s.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Let me remind you of the first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. We go with the Metro. They go blindness, ignorance, prejudice, defensiveness. That's their take on what's led up to the grooming gang issue. The Independent, they've gone too much denial, too little justice, again, on the grooming gangs. They also carry the story that we just spoke about before of the Israelis bombing Iranian state television. The Eye, generations of girls let down by police. The Telegraph, asylum seekers behind new grooming gang cases, which is just horrific, isn't it? The Guardian, Israel warns Iranians to flee as deadly air raids continue. Daily Mail, conspiracy of silence over race doomed thousands of girls to abuse. And The Express, let's uncover a lot of truth in the sex gangs inquiry. And The Mirror, grooming gang scandal never again, they say. Final one is The Times, ethnicity was brushed aside in grooming gang inquiries. And they also have a picture there of Keir Starmer meeting a, what's the technical term for this chap? Native American, there you go. Just never sure what you're allowed to say anyway. But right, I don't know, one week, that's probably going to be banned again, isn't it? But anyway, let's get thoughts of my panel. GB News contributor and comedian Leo Kirst, journalist and broadcaster Christoph Pufas, and political commentator Andy Twelve. Let's do some of the inside stories. So, the Times story. They've gone for chaos on a French beach as police try to stop migrants. A legal loophole stops officers intervening once a vessel is afloat. The Times visits a beach where police play cat and mouse with migrants trying to reach the UK. The Times has published a report covering chaos on the French beaches as migrants just run away. So there we go, dodging tear gas canisters, French police to get to the water. So basically, the Times, by what I can gather, Leo, have gone to France and stalked the French police and come to largely the same conclusion I did, which is that they're not doing very well.
Yeah, and this is how you know that, 95% of the migrants coming across are male. Because if they were women, the French would be trying to corral them into some sort of pen and seduce them. But they're not. They're not. They're like, no, you can go to Dover. Go and enrich Britain. Why don't you? There's some vengeance for Brexit.
Yeah.
There's so much
it's
violence.
definitely not a Marine Le Pen either, is it?
Very good.
There's so much violence now. There are shootings in the camps. So the smuggling gangs, they shot and a woman and child who, randomly were there actually did get injured in the shooting. So it's horrific.
Yeah.
They're having to fire tear gas and take action like this.
And this is the story, of course, that they've sort of uncovered, is that this legal loophole, as you referenced. So if the migrants sort of wade out a little bit, and that's where a lot of the people smugglers are telling them to do, then the French authorities, they can't actually stop
Which is ridiculous, isn't it? Why not?
And when you're and also when you're on board, and so then if they see the authorities coming and they're in the water, if you jump on board the dinghy, then they can't do anything. They're not allowed to burst a dinghy or do anything while anyone's on it, even if it's in sort of knee-deep water.
It's just insane. I don't see why.
Yeah, not good. It's nuts that they're shooting about tear gas. I think it's probably just pays testament to these gangs are actually extremely serious and like really, really bad guys. And I think the French, we've sent so much money to the French this last week. We've paid for all these cameras, all this equipment, all this gear. Just do the job, man. Just stand and grab them and sort them out. Do you know what I mean?
We should send British police over.
Yes.
I'm not saying they do a better job, but we could send maybe just motivated British people. We could harvest them from Twitter and send them over. Maybe some sort of volunteer
viewer competition.
Or we could absolutely insist that the migrants on the beach misgender someone on Twitter, and then the police will be there seconds, and they'll be inside within.
You would be able to raise a standing army of several million people overnight if you said, right, we're off to turn the boats back, lads. Does anyone want to join me? And straight away. Right, there's another report here. I'm going to put this to you, Leo, because I think in a way this is your fault. So the SNP is set to dump up to 100 truckloads of rubbish into England every day after a landfill ban. The Scottish Government has banned black bin bag waste from being buried in landfills north of the Scottish border. So Scotland does not have enough incinerators to manage that waste, which experts said could amount to 600,000 tonnes in the ban's first year. So councils and commercial waste companies have approached rubbish handling operators in England, and they're going to be dumping Scottish rubbish, Leo. Scottish rubbish in England.
All those tartan shortbread wrappers.
They say that Scotland doesn't export anything, eh? Whoever said that?
This is classic green politics. So they think, we've banned landfill. Oh, that means we're so much greener. It's like, no, now you're just going to have to carry it by diesel truck and then probably ship it to the Maldives and shove it into a mangrove swamp there.
By private jet. They'll fly it over by private jet.
It's insane. It's like the same policy they do with oil. So instead of developing oil fields off the coast of Scotland, they're bringing oil in from like Saudi Arabia and Qatar by boat, and the boats can sink and destroy seals and stuff. It's like we could be doing things so much more sensibly. There's loads of places in Scotland that wouldn't be in any way not improved by chucking loads of rubbish on them. So just, so much. The whole place is like really sparsely populated and made out of valleys.
You would think, wouldn't you, that they'd say, right, we want to ban this rubbish that's going to landfill, and we want to make sure it's being incinerated. Let's make sure we've got the capacity of the incinerators before we bring in the ban, right? Would you?
Well, that would be the obvious thing to do, wouldn't it?
Not do that?
I know.
I'm sorry.
It's just insane. This is just the SNP.
Stupid, mate. SNP, what they're doing. I think it's it's just stupid. Like,
you say that, my Labour council, they went down to once a fortnight bin collections, and now there's just rubbish all over the streets.
Where do you live in? Is it
I live
Lambeth?
in a place called the People's Republic of Lambeth. You can't drive anywhere, you can't go anywhere, but rubbish is everywhere. So plenty.
Well,
that's Labour. So it's not just the SNP that do this.
Well, the rubbish is coming from Scotland, actually. That's the problem.
There was a truck with Nicola Sturgeon's face on it.
It's a camper van.
It's a camper van, Coming up, apparently young men are responding positively to strong and independent female film characters. Plus, we promised to tell you the truth. This is my promise to you, OK? I'm going to tell you the truth about smoky bacon-flavoured crisps. It's Patrick Christys Tonight Late Edition.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun. Well, they're looking good then.
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
If you're jetting off to the Mediterranean this week, there will be plenty of fine conditions, quite widespread sunshine out towards Greece and the Aegean. A few showers to watch out for in places. They may develop into thunderstorms, but they're being driven because the temperatures are really set to soar. Particularly across Iberia, we could see a heat wave developing with inland areas, seeing temperatures close towards 40 degrees Celsius by midweek, and that heat will transfer to France later on.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
Practice Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight, late edition. My panel is with me. We've got GB contributor. What's going on?
Can we say what you've been
Someone's called me a skid mark on Twitter.
All right. Oh, there you go. Absolutely was not expected to hear those words on national television today.
See if you can top that. Send him some more insults.
Yeah. I don't think that is a vile insult.
I didn't realise you'd seen my tweet. So, anyway. Anyway, your final inside stories, right? So, as is in the Times tomorrow, young men are increasingly responding positively to strong and independent female film characters rather than those in supporting roles, according to a study. So researchers have found that younger male viewers prefer character-driven storytelling with narrative depth. Well, I just don't believe that.
Yeah, and also there's always been amazing action films with strong characters. Look at Terminator and Aliens.
Yeah.
I just think that's absolute BS.
I think the reading between the lines there, it's young men prefer characters with substance versus characters without substance.
Yeah.
I think, which is hot take, but
yeah,
I don't think it's that deep of a story.
I don't know about films, but a lot of the men I like you know, that I know, they like, you know, Madonna, Lady Gaga, Judy Garland. They're all very strong female role models, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is it. Maybe a lot of those blokes are gay. That's all it is.
Is that not what that story was saying?
Well,
it might be.
Well, not in black and white, no. But you know, there's signs that maybe there might be. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. So I don't really know where to go with that. To be honest, should I just remind you of tomorrow's newspaper front pages? Why not? Yeah. I mean, it's all grooming gangs. It's grooming gangs. We go with the Metro first. They just say, yeah, blindness, ignorance, prejudice, defensiveness.
Which happens to be the 2029 slogan for the Labour Party election.
Blindness, ignorance, prejudice, defensiveness. Yeah.
Vote for change.
Yeah, vote for change.
Very good.
Go on, what's the next one we're doing? Independent? Too much denial, too little justice. Do you think that some newspapers, Leo, are responsible for this? Because I think like a lot of people just tried not to cover it, didn't they?
Oh, well, some of the coverage in The Guardian has been, outright, almost criminal in the way they sort of obfuscate the issue and try and minimise it, and the whole sort of pivot way to saying, oh no, but it's mostly white people. I mean, at the time Britain was a 85% white country, so you'd expect white people to form most of the crimes, but they mixed in the specific issue of these basically child rape gangs. Yeah. They mix them in with other types of child sexual exploitation, all of which are horrific, of course, but I mean, it's a specific type. Yeah. It's particularly brutal and nasty and, torture.
What it was blindness, ignorance, prejudice and defensiveness. I mean, that's precisely what the media did as well. I mean, that's a very good headline for it all.
The four horsemen of the left.
Yeah, no, indeed. I just think it's going to be really interesting to watch how the left-wing papers handle their worldview crumbling.
Andy?
Crumbling around them.
I actually don't write for a left-wing paper, sadly. But I think, I mean, obviously The Independent, they've got their political history has been there about a year and a bit. David Maddox, obviously a darling of the Express and that kind of Brexit era. So I think, obviously newspaper titles are the journalists that write for them. So I think a lot of the journalists that would have written pretty bad things over the last 20 to 30 years probably will have shunted out. And I think it is unfair to judge some of these young reporters who have written, supporting things. You can't just judge a paper by its title.
Yeah, OK. I'm hoping that I might be able to reveal the truth about Smoky Bacon Crisps at some point in the next minute, but hopefully we can do, because I made a promise to the viewers.
Is the news that they're halal?
The EU is going to ban Smoky Bacon Crisps, apparently. It's not because they insult Islam or anything. It's because apparently the flavours in them are banned in the EU because they might be carcinogenic, which actually puts me off them a little bit.
It's 8 flavouring methods that might be banned.
8 flavouring methods?
Yeah.
Gosh.
And it's part of his Brexit reset deal. So, you're saying Brexit benefits here. Well, you're not getting them.
Well, no, we're getting more. We're getting more bacon-flavoured crisps because we can't sell them off.
Well,
that's the benefit, I suppose.
Apparently,
Frazzle's good.
Smoky Bacon Surrender, they've called it.
The Prime Minister has agreed to dynamically align with EU rules on food safety, so the flavourings will need to be modified.
Yeah, so that means that
that's probably good.
We can't have the Smoky Bacon Crisps we've come to know and love.
Yes.
Well, if they're killing us, that's probably good.
But
if we enjoy them...
you die for them only bullshit.
Is the pleasure worth it? I get it with, champagne or something. The pleasure is kind of worth it.
Yeah.
But with Smoky Bacon Crisps, I mean, with that, this sort of after...
Are you defending the EU's policy here on Smoky Bacon Crisps?
I'm saying this is one thing the EU got right. Smoky Bacon Crisps. Like prawn cocktail, different story. Like hands off our prawn cocktail. But Smoky Bacon Crisps?
Yeah.
That's not a hill for me to die on.
There'll probably be a ban on them, and an outdoor ban and an indoor ban.
There we go. Everything. All right, guys, we're going to go. Thank you very much, our wonderful panel. Thank you to all of my guests. I'll be back at 11 p.m. with some other people. It just says there. All right? And if you're watching at 5 a.m, I hope you feel up to date and stay tuned for breakfast. Take care.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Windy in the north overnight, particularly the far north of Scotland, with areas of cloud and some rain drifting south, although it will stall across central areas, leaving mostly fine conditions across southern parts of the UK because of this area of high pressure which is beginning to dominate. And that's going to extend countrywide later this week. But for the time being, we do have some weak weather fronts toppling in across the northern edge of that high, and those weather fronts have been bringing outbreaks of rain to central and northern Scotland through the day. The rain then sinking into southern Scotland and Northern Ireland overnight. Some heavy bursts associated with it and some strong winds in the far north. Further south, it's a calmer night with clear spells and some mist and fog to start the day across southern parts of England and the Midlands. Nevertheless, through Scotland, it's a cloudy start for many. Some brightness as the cloud breaks up to the east, but it's still a blustery picture across much of Scotland and Northern Ireland as we begin Tuesday with showery rain at times. The rain edging into Cumbria, northern parts of the Pennines, and an increase in the cloud coming along to parts of Wales, the north coast of Devon and Cornwall. But for much of East Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia and the south, it's a sunny start to Tuesday after any mist patches burn away. And then we keep those spells of sunshine into the afternoon, possibly a sunnier afternoon compared with Monday. But we do have this zone of cloud and rain that's tending to peter out through the day across central parts of the UK. Brighter skies to the north, feeling fresher. 26 Celsius, though, in the southeast. And those temperatures are going to climb day by day through the rest of the week as high pressure extends its influence across the whole of the UK. So most places are going to be bright and dry on Wednesday, some cloud and a bit more of a breeze in the north of Scotland. But elsewhere, with that strong June sunshine, temperatures rising each day, peaking by the weekend into the low 30s.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Very, very good evening to you and welcome to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. And coming up on tonight's show, a major milestone in the grooming gang scandal as the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has addressed at long last the findings of Baroness Casey's report into grooming gangs, declaring it as a deep-rooted failure to treat children as children. And the Home Secretary highlighted that there was a collective failure to tackle questions about grooming gangs' ethnicity and promised a full national judge-led inquiry. But is it all too little, too late? And also coming up on tonight's show.
Immigration is the lifeblood of this country. It always has been.
The big question, where exactly does Reform UK stand on immigration? Their new chairman raised eyebrows by telling the press he thought immigration was the lifeblood of this nation. Does he stand by those comments? Well, I'll be joined in the studio by Dr. David Bull live in just a moment to put that precise question to him. And are we set for the Snoopers Charter 2.0? Well, civil servants are reportedly set to be given powers to monitor individuals' private bank accounts in what some have branded a dangerous threat to civil liberty. And tourism backlash is sweeping Spain, Italy and Portugal as locals, well, socialists armed with water pistols protest the presence of British holidaymakers from Barcelona to Venice. Some say Brits abroad are a boost. Others are calling them a nuisance, a blight. Are the locals overreacting or is mass tourism simply out of control? What was the show? Well, decades in the making. At last, today, the survivors of rape gangs across Britain have been given a glimmer of hope. A full, judge-led national inquiry with the power to compel people to turn up at court and face the music. Is it enough? Is it too little, too late? Or are we finally tackling Britain's shame rape gangs? Of course, I'll be joined by Charlie Peters, who's been driving this story throughout. Get in touch with your views. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do it. But first, let's get your headlines. And here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories. The Home Secretary says the government will now make it a formal requirement for ethnicity and nationality data to be collected for all sexual abuse cases. It comes as a report into sexual abuse carried out by grooming gangs in England and Wales is released. Setting out next steps following Baroness Louise Casey's probe into grooming gangs, Ms Cooper told the Commons too many grooming cases have been dropped or downgraded from rape to lesser charges because a 13 to 15-year-old is perceived to have been in love with or had consented to sex with the perpetrator. Sir Keir Starmer's under increasing pressure to apologise after he U-turned over the weekend, previously resisting calls for a national inquiry. Yvette Cooper says these crimes are a stain on our society.
After I asked police forces in January to identify cases involving grooming and child sexual exploitation allegations that had been closed with no further action, more than 800 cases have now been identified for formal review, and I expect that figure to rise above 1,000 in the coming weeks. Let me be clear. Perpetrators of these vile crimes should be off our streets, behind bars, and paying the price for what they have done.
Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has accused the Prime Minister of an extraordinary failure of leadership.
I think we knew this all along. This is what has been said by many people, not least of all myself, but especially the victims, the survivors of this scandal. And this is their victory right now. I want to pay tribute to so many of them who waived their anonymity and never stopped fighting because they talked about this and they were dismissed as dog whistling, jumping on a far-right bandwagon and all sorts of nonsense. And I'm glad that the Casey report has now exposed that we needed a full national inquiry all along.
And Sir Keir Starmer has urged British nationals in Israel to register their presence there as countries step up efforts to bring back stranded citizens. Britons already in the country now face difficulties getting home with the airspace closed due to the conflict with Iran. Israel's Iron Dome defence system was breached overnight as Iran launched renewed strikes with at least 8 people killed and nearly 300 injured. The Israeli Prime Minister says Israel has full aerial operational control over the Iranian capital, Tehran, following 4 days of strikes. Yesterday, Israeli strikes killed the chief of Iran's armed forces intelligence unit. So Keir Starmer says the focus of the G7 meetings this week will be on the de-escalation of the conflict.
Shared concern about the risk of escalation, obviously, shared concern about the nuclear programme of Iran, but absolutely a focus on how we de-escalate this, and that'll be a central focus as we go into the talks today, get that de-escalation. And of course, all of us are giving advice to our citizens, for British nationals in Israel.
And those are all of your GB News headlines for now.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana. Excellent as ever. Now, history was made today. People will be hoping, because the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has addressed the findings of Baroness Casey's report into grooming gangs, declaring it as a deep-rooted failure to treat children as children. And the Home Secretary highlighted that there was a collective failure to tackle questions about grooming gangs' ethnicity.
And on the key issues of ethnicity that I'd asked her to examine, she has found continued failure to gather proper, robust national data, despite concerns being raised going back very many years. In the local data that the audit examined from 3 police forces, they identify clear evidence of over-representation among suspects of Asian and Pakistani heritage men. And she refers to examples of organisations avoiding the topic altogether for fear of appearing racist or raising community tensions.
Now, bear in mind, just 5 months ago, the entire Labour Party refused that full national inquiry. So what happened? Well, what happened was there was a massive public backlash, and many believe they were dragged kicking and screaming into finally giving the survivors of rape gangs the justice they deserve. Well, fresh from a press briefing with Baroness Casey herself is our national reporter, Charlie Peters. Charlie, welcome to the show. We've been speaking throughout the day. Many people think that this is at long last coming reluctantly because they were dragged into it. But you've been with Baroness Casey in that briefing. Tell us what happened inside it.
Well, Baroness Casey said that the victims were at the centre of this 5-month rapid audit that she conducted. And she also said that while she started the process, she did not believe a national inquiry was necessary. But very quickly, there was a turning point. She's been on a bit of a personal journey here, Martin, because when she went to the Home Office, she asked about these local inquiries that they announced in January. Remember, there were 5, and they were going to get £5 million to do it. And she found out that only Oldham had been confirmed and no other areas had volunteered or requested an investigation. At that point, she said she realised something was awry and she was duly unimpressed with the situation. Baroness Casey has a reputation for plain speaking and excellent troubleshooting, and her reports, having read almost all of it already, it's nearly 200 pages long, but there's so much detail, it certainly reaffirms that reputation. She is very sharp about state failure, running in for many decades. This is a 5-month audit, but it comes after decades of failure, with survivors being let down. Well, earlier, just in the last half hour, I spoke with Baroness Louise Casey to ask her what she had uncovered.
So I think the main thing that I have found is that I think certainly I did an inspection into Rotherham in 2015, where the issue of grooming gangs and the failure both of the local authority, the police, to intervene effectively and to catch the perpetrators, because the people that do this stuff are criminals, remember, was not good enough. And I looked at the last, first definition of child sexual exploitation was 2009, government, and I've looked at that period of time and tried to make sense of what's going on. So even though the numbers of cases of what they call group-based child sexual exploitation, which is code for a very heinous crime, it may be small in number, but it's still pretty horrendous. In my view, we've got historic cases that we haven't. There may be victims out there that haven't had justice that I think we should double back and do something about. And there are current cases where I think the approach to dealing with grooming gangs is not sufficiently robust, and that essentially is what I found. So I think there are two big things I've asked for nationally. One is a national criminal investigation, and obviously when people are coming forward and reporting crime, and I think we need also, it's in the report, I've got a formula where I think we can go and try and find historic victims and see if they want justice.
In the country.
Well, I always think when something is difficult and you don't tell the truth, then essentially that creates anger and upset. And so I think just being really straight about it is the best thing to do. And in a way, I'm angry myself that for the last decade plus, we haven't collected this type of ethnicity data to say, is it or isn't it a national problem? And that then leads to people running amok with the fact they think there are cover-ups and this and that and the other. Some of those people aren't good people, in my view, and they are, you know, determined to sow hate. Some of those people are people just wanting to know what is going on. I'm in the group which is I want to know what's going on, so if I can understand what they call in policing terms the threat, then you essentially can work out how to stop it. And I think one of the reasons I've gone for this tightening up of consent is because I want every woman now that at the age of 13, 14 and 15, if this happened to her, not to feel that it was her fault.
This is vindication for so many survivors, their families, the campaigners and all others who have supported them for so many years, because Baroness Casey is saying today that we haven't learned any of the serious lessons that need to be learned. She says that people have faffed around rather than engaging with this issue properly. People haven't told the truth. People haven't investigated this severely. And she also had some choice words for me about the behaviour of politicians. She said that people had been using severe and negative language, and that potentially had pushed survivors away from engaging with this issue. She hopes now that with her rapid audit and the setup of those two inquiries, a police national investigation, but also the sort of civil inquiries that should take place now, which she wants to take between 3 and 5 years, she hopes now that with both of those strands, survivors and their families will have the confidence to come forward, share information and get the justice that they so desperately deserve.
Charlie Peters, one of the astonishing and shameful facts to come out today was when Yvette Cooper said that only 37% of perpetrators even had their ethnicity recorded. That is shameful. And she said that part of the reason for that was something that you and I and anybody who's been following this without a political screening, if you like, all along, has said because the vast majority were Asian or Pakistani men, but people were afraid of being called racist. Charlie Peters, one thing that really struck me from that session with Baroness Casey, you told me she was asked by the press, oh, isn't this stoking up racial tension by telling the truth? Actually, I thought she answered excellently. She said it's stoking up racial tension by not telling the truth. We deserve to tell the truth because facts aren't racist.
That's right, Martin, and she said it does no honour or no service to the Pakistani or Muslim communities of this country, the majority of whom in polling organised by GBNews want a national inquiry, but also they want severe punishment not only for these grooming gang abusers, but also for those who covered up the crimes and were complicit in denying justice taking its natural course. And I should say some of the findings from an ethnicity perspective are quite stark in this rapid audit. Over 50% of the group-based CSE cases in Manchester are for Pakistani or Asian heritage men, and it's over 64%, I believe, in Rotherham, despite in that town just 4% of the population being from the Pakistani or Asian heritage community. That is a remarkable overrepresentation, an astonishing overrepresentation, Martin. But for so many years, people have avoided these facts. They've looked at the bigger picture and said, well, when you look at all cases of child abuse, actually white men are the majority. But when you really drill down to this specific form of child sexual exploitation through grooming gangs, through local areas in this manner, then you do find this overrepresentation. It's time finally now, Martin, the government have been told to do this, to get to the bottom of why that is, to understand the ethnicity, the social, the religious and the cultural drivers that have led to that overrepresentation. Baroness Casey is quite right when she says that if we do not do that, if we do not pursue the truth, and the truth does not fear investigation, then we're going to have a higher chance of civil unrest, not if we have the reality on the ground right across this country.
Charlie Peters, it's so refreshing to hear that at long last survivors have found an ally in Baroness Casey and, of course, in yourself with your phenomenal reporting. Charlie Peters, thank you very, very much for joining us on tonight's show. Well, for some reaction to that, I'm now joined in the studio by the Reform Party chairman, Dr. David Bull. Dr. Bull, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to have your company. What's your reaction to the Casey report? Are you convinced that at long last survivors might see some light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, look, I mean, first of all, I'm really angry and upset for the victims of these horrendous crimes. And how dare those two main political parties take credit for what is actually finally happening? You know, at the end of the day, what we want to see done is justice, and we need a statutory inquiry where you compel witnesses to give evidence. And I think your point is absolutely valid, which is if you do not address this, if you do not record the ethnicity of these perpetrators, then actually, and if you don't actually have a proper statutory inquiry, that will fuel civil unrest. People in this country want to see justice, and how dare these young people suffer at the hands of these men, and there needs to be justice served, and quickly. And that's the other point that Richard Tice made, actually, in the Commons today. He said, when is this report going to report back properly? And I hope it is very, very soon, and I hope the justice is swift.
OK, thank you for your take on that. Now then, Dr. David, well, it's fair to say that you made some comments recently about immigration. We'd have got a few people in the Reform Party and a few of your voters. It's ruffled their feathers. Let's play the clip of what you said about the joys of immigration.
The key for me about this is it's about integrating into this country. Immigration is the lifeblood of this country. It always has been. But also, if you come to this country, you have to adopt our culture, our systems, our values. And covering your face is a barrier to communication, because that is not the way to communicate. We need to rebuild communities, and you do that by talking to people.
So, Dr. Bull, the Daily Telegraph were quick to pick up on this. They said Reform's new chairman has swallowed the migration lie, hook, line and sinker. Immigration has never been the lifeblood of our nation.
Come on. The whole thing was taken...
What's your actual position?
Well, it was taken completely out of context. I think it was a rather nuanced answer. The point I was trying to make was that we need to be in charge and in control of immigration in this country. There is no doubt that immigration is out of control in this country. And by that, actually, I mean both legal and illegal immigration. If you go from importing something like 900,000 people a year into this country, even if you go down to 475,000, this is legal people coming into this country. Where are the schools? Where are the hospitals? Where are the services? Where are the GPs? Where are the houses? That's one side of it. And then when you look at illegal migration, 15,000 so far this year. They cost 4.5 billion quid. You've got 38,000 sitting in asylum accommodation or temporary accommodation in this country. And when you look at the cost of that, that is the same as the City of Manchester's tax revenue and their national insurance. Nothing is being done about it, and people are absolutely furious.
You're right on that, and certainly Reform voters will be glad to hear this. But the fact of the matter remains, in 1951, immigrants made up 30,000 total of the entire population, 0.07% of the population. So the facts simply don't stand up. Is that still your position? That immigration has always been the lifeblood?
Well, what I meant by that was it was a much more nuanced answer. So, for example, many of us are actually immigrants a long time ago, whether you're a Huguenot, whether you came from wherever. And that was kind of what I was trying to say. The point that I'm now making, and just to be very clear on this, is both legal and illegal immigration are completely out of control. And let's look at why that is. Because, of course, we had this open border policy. We let anyone come to this country under Tony Blair, under Boris Johnson. And when you look that we have 925,000 kids between 18 and 25 who are not in education, employment or training, what we need to do is to put this country first. I want to see those young people in jobs, in training, in employment, and that is our priority.
So is your position now, then, that immigration hasn't?
It was a clumsy sentence, probably. But I was just trying to say that when you have control controlled immigration, let's take the health service. If we don't have the specialist care and the physicians, for example, then we need to say, right, we are going to allocate this number of people to come into this country who are excellent in their specialties.
We could train British nurses.
Of course we
could train
but it will take time, Martin. That is part of the problem. And that was really what I was trying to get at. But yes, of course, I want British people to have predominance in jobs in this country.
Good. Let's look at what some of the Reform voting polling tells us. Because 84% of Reform voters, the highest of any party, probably no surprises to viewers or to yourself, support the deportation of violent criminals. What is the Reform Party's position on enforced repatriation, if you like? Because a lot of people think they would like to perhaps see a more Trumpian approach of deporting criminals, but that doesn't sit well with the same comment of immigration being the lifeblood of the nation.
Will you stop going back to that one comment that I made? No, look, the point is that actually in terms of our prison population, we don't have enough prison places. I also would like people who are violent offenders who are not from this country to be repatriated.
And also, Reform's policy seems to be, Nigel Farage has said it, Zia Youssef has said, I think you have as well, to deport all illegal immigrants. Is that still the policy of the party? Because that could be more than 1 million people.
Well, let's go back just in terms of the people who've come here illegally. First of all, we can't do anything currently because we're in the ECHR, so we need to leave the ECHR. Also, there's far too much pull factor. So if you come here illegally on a boat, you're given a house, you're giving benefits. We found out today from Zia and the Doge Group that actually we're paying your TV licence. What madness is this? The fact is, if you come here illegally, we need to make it very difficult for you, process you rapidly and deport you if you have no right to be in this country. If you come here illegally, you will not have the right to work, you cannot come back, and we will ensure that you are deported and swiftly.
OK, Dr David Bill, thank you for joining us tonight and facing the music. Always a pleasure to have your company. Now, coming up next, more on today's grooming gangs announcements from the Home Secretary as politicians from across the board welcome the news. But questions have been raised about why this has taken so long. I'll be joined by a Conservative MP who's been campaigning in the Bradford area. Robbie Moore joins me next. With me, Martin Daubney on GBNews Tonight.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, Martin Dorbin. Now, the conflict between Israel and Iran has dominated the G7 in Canada as leaders are planning to issue a joint statement on the conflict in the Middle East as they meet in Canada. Now, earlier this afternoon, President Donald Trump had this to say on what he had heard from the Iranians.
I'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. I had 60 days, and they had 60 days, and on the 61st day, I said, we don't have a deal. They have to make a deal, and it's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war.
Well, that was Donald Trump. Let's cross now to Chopper, our man in Canada, our political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, Mark Carney on the screen there, Donald Trump on the screen. They'd be forgiven for believing that Donald Trump was leading this. And once again, he's dominating all of the airwaves. And there's a lot of talk back here, Chris, about the fact the grooming gang inquiry is out. Sir Keir Starmer, once again, being never here, Keir, on his 25th foreign trip since becoming Prime Minister.
Yeah, that's right, Martin. Well, welcome back to the Rockies, the Canadian Rockies. It's lunchtime here. Already meetings are taking place. We're expecting Sir Keir Starmer to meet with Emmanuel Macron, discussing small boats, trade, and of course the Middle East, Israel, Iran. And also we're expecting Donald Trump to meet with the Prime Minister before long. So bringing you the updates as soon as we get them. Already we're hearing from the UK government. They're saying that Brits out in Israel must notify the Foreign Office through a portal going live today where they are. Obviously that the government says that's not ahead of some formal evacuation, but at least it allows the government to know where Brits are if the situation escalates anymore. Of course, the UK has deployed RAF Typhoons in the region. Again, question marks over how. Back in April and October last year, the UK stepped in to defend Israel from Iran. If that happens again, it does put the UK in line of fire from Iran's attacks. That's a concern too. So that is dominating the talk here at the G7. You say he's been away 25 times. I mean, in defence of the Prime Minister, he does want to get away and travel, and he's doing well, I think, on the world stage as he signs trade deals and agreements with India, US and the European Union. Whatever you think of those deals, he is trying to push Britain on the world stage. He also did a deal just yesterday with Canada to ensure that Canada won't the Pan-Pacific Trade Partnership that opens up access to $12 trillion of trade exit dividends. So he has to the number against any suggestion that he's over here to avoid scrutiny from the rape gang scandal we've been covering in such detail on GB News. They're saying very clearly he's put himself up for interviews. He has looked at the evidence from Louis Casey, and I think there now should be a national inquiry. That's how the PM works. He looks at the evidence and then acts.
OK, thank you, Chris Hope there. And apologies for a slightly rocky signal there from the Rocky Mountains. Chris Hope, thank you very, very much. Now, returning now back to Baroness Casey's historic report into rape gangs released earlier today. And Baroness Casey has set out 12 recommendations in that report after she found that police were avoiding pursuing grooming gangs over fears of being called racist. Now, in the report, she writes the establishment have been in denial over the ethnicity of the grooming gangs. And I'm joined now by the Conservative MP Robbie Moore, who's with our man Charlie Peters. Robbie Moore, of course, is somebody who's campaigned tirelessly on this. Charlie, over to you.
That's right, Martin. Yeah, I'm very happy to say I'm joined now by Robbie here on College Green. And Robbie, this is an extraordinary result of what the Conservatives are saying, their own campaigning, but also for a lot of victims and survivors around the country.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a day for the victims and survivors that have been calling on this for a huge amount of time. And I have, as the Member of Parliament for Keighley within the Bradford district. So we are very pleased that finally the government have said that there's going to be a national inquiry. But we need to now get to the detail on that, because what I'm unsure of is that if there is still going to be a spotlight on the Bradford district that I've been advocating for consistently for a long period of time now.
And, Robbie, there is surely a sense of regret on Conservative benches that it's taken a Labour government to call for this national inquiry. The Conservatives might say that there was the ICSA report going on, but that concluded 3 years ago. There was time to do this before Labour came into power.
Well, look, I've always advocated that the ICSA recommendations should have actually been put in place in full from day one. It's frustrating that never actually happened, and it's frustrating that still we don't have the time frame associated with that from this Labour government. And yet we now have the national inquiry coming down the line. That has been announced today, but yet we still don't know if that's going to focus on the Bradford district as I've been advocating for. And what this also says is actually a really damning day for those leaders in West Yorkshire, the leader of Bradford Council, the West Yorkshire Mayor, who have consistently refused to get behind my campaign, and indeed yours, and indeed those of the many victims and survivors that have wanted that spotlight to be shone across Bradford district to make sure that this absolutely is investigated as robustly, as strongly as it can be, and that those perpetrators are properly held to account.
The Bradford Council and the Mayor have always said that they have had some independent reviews, but obviously survivors in the town say that's insufficient and there's more to uncover. Robbie, we've also heard from Baroness Casey today saying that people have faffed around on this. Do you think that reflects what the Conservatives did in 14 years? Did you faff around when this issue was being raised?
Well, I feel that there's been a huge institutional failure across decades. I mean, crikey, it was Anne Cryer, who was my predecessor when she was the MP between 97 and 2010, was consistently raising this, and it was a Labour government at the time that refused to recognise what she was saying. And yes, there has been institutional failure. It has been the biggest national scandal, and yet here we are, only today, a national inquiry being launched, but yet we don't know what that is going to actually mean for places that have never had that spotlight shone on them, like Bradford district. And I will absolutely keep campaigning consistently until I understand what this government actually is going to be delivering, and we actually get what the victims and the survivors have been advocating for since this issue has been raised.
Now, Baroness Casey said today that the moment that changed her opinion on this and the need for a national inquiry is when she found out that the 5 local inquiries announced in January, only Oldham was coming forward to call for that, and it wouldn't have statutory powers. Do you think that Labour ministers involved in that decision and those who suggested that this was a far-right issue should be considering their positions this evening?
Well, look, this is just so frustrating when the narrative at that point was changing away from what the real issue was, which was addressing those issues of the survivors and the victims. And it is incredibly frustrating that when the Home Secretary stood in the chamber back in January and announced that there was going to be these 5 local audits or local inquiries, that there was no statutory powers that are being awarded to them. Indeed, that there was this narrative that was given by the Prime Minister at the time that anyone that raised this was jumping on the far-right bandwagon. And that is completely wrong, because what that does is it degrades actually the concerns that are being raised by people like me, by people like those survivors and those victims, and indeed those wider families that have had to endure this level of heinous crime for far, far too long. And I do hope that those ministers that have gone down that narrative, indeed the Prime Minister, apologise for taking that stance and indeed roll back that rhetoric, because we're all raising valid concerns that need addressing.
Now, Baroness Casey today has called for 2 sorts of inquiries, a police national investigation, but also this sort of civilian, this sort of political inquiry, a national inquiry away from policing matters. What do you want that second inquiry to look at?
Well, what the Casey review didn't focus on is local authorities, or indeed those organisations beyond the police forces that had safeguarding responsibility. Now, I have always advocated and raised a huge level of concern around local authorities, indeed mine in the Bradford district, because you have a local authority there that had children's services stripped away from it under the last Conservative administration. So what I absolutely hope that as we see going forward, that this isn't just focusing on police forces, but it's focusing on local local authorities. In fact, any organisation that has had safeguarding responsibilities, dare I say children's care homes, for example, and how those have been signed off by local authorities. So this needs to be wide-ranging, it needs to be done quickly, and it needs to be boots on the ground. There's no good at all if this is a national inquiry that's only focused here in Westminster. It needs to be out in the communities like Bradford and Keighley to get to grips with these issues. And finally, convictions must follow. And if it means that people lose their jobs, regardless of political colour, then so be it.
Robbie Moore, thank you very much for your time this evening. Well, there you go, Martin. That's the view of Robbie Moore, the Tory MP for Keighley and Ilkley. Arrests potentially going to follow from a national investigation, potentially more grooming gang abusers facing the sort of retribution that they otherwise would have avoided. But as you've just heard, a lot of politicians, a lot of survivors and campaigners, they don't just want the perpetrators to be looked at. They want the local authorities and the civil servants and police officers who failed them to also face a great degree of retribution.
Well, Charlie Peters, a lot of people watching the show will be wishing sleepless nights on anybody who's involved in this historic abuse, no matter where they work, social services, in politics, in the police, in councils. There should be a day of reckoning. Thank you for your excellent work today, as ever, Charlie Peters, and also thank you to Robbie Moore. Now, coming up next, are we set for the Snoopers Charter 2.0? Because civil servants are reportedly set to be sniffing around, giving powers to monitor individuals' private bank accounts in what some have branded a dangerous threat to civil liberties. What on earth they want to put their noses in our bank accounts for? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News Tonight.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You have the power then.
Yeah,
as I say, now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to GBNews Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubin. Now, this evening at 9 p.m, as ever, the magnificent Patrick Christys tonight. And the star of that show joins me now, the formidable, the machine, Patrick. What's on your show?
Yes, well, loads on. I mean, we are clearly going to be touching on the Pakistani rape gang crisis that we're now allowed to talk about. Emily Maitlis was way off the mark, wasn't she, when she was interviewing Rupert Lowe? So we're going to get stuck into all of that, ask what we have to do about it. There's also a report that's out that says that illegal immigration, people who have come to Britain illegally, are being investigated for grooming gang offences. So they've come to this country, they've broken in, they've been put up at the taxpayers' expense, and then they've gone about raping British girls, which I think really needs to stop. We're going to be talking about all of that. I'm also going to be having a head-to-head on abortion as well, because it looks as though some people want you to be allowed to have an abortion right up until the moment of birth, which I think is probably murder. And lone wolf attacks, finally, as well. So we are now looking at potentially bad faith actors from Iran who have lived here, worked here, etc., being essentially activated by the Iranian regime to do nasty things to us. So all of that and much more.
Patrick Christys tonight, always a meat-packed menu from 9 till 11. Always a pleasure. Thank you. Mate. Now back to GBNews Tonight. Now, in a move branded a snooper's charter, new government plans could grant civil servants unprecedented powers to access the public's bank accounts without even to have to acquire a court order. Now, the proposed new fraud bill would allow mid-ranking officials to freeze your accounts, seize your funds, and even demand search warrants, bypassing, of course, the traditional police oversight. Now, critics warn this marks a dangerous shift, turning banks into state agents and threatening civil liberties. But, of course, ministers claim it's a necessary tool to fight fraud. Peers and privacy advocates fear a chilling erosion of personal freedom and accountability. Well, it's a great conversation. I'm joined now in the studio by the Legal and Policy Officer at Big Brother Watch, Jasleen Chagger. Jasleen, welcome to the studio. So, of course, they would say this is about clamping down on the bad guys that want to steal your money and wish the state and all of us harm. But isn't this just an intrusion into all of our lives because they can't catch the bad guys?
You're absolutely right. The government is giving itself extraordinary powers to directly deduct money from bank accounts where people owe it money, not just for fraud, but also for error, without any court oversight. And these are officials in Whitehall who will be doing these checks, going behind people's backs, asking their banks to hand over 3 months' worth of bank statements to decide whether to deduct that money. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because there are also mass surveillance powers in this bill, which would require banks to scan every single one of our bank accounts to determine if there is an indication of a fraud, overpayment or an error, even the government's own error. And so it's completely disproportionate.
Now, Jasleen, the authorities, the state, the civil service themselves, the government would no doubt say, well, what have you got to fear? If you've got nothing to hide, why have you got a problem with us looking at your financial activities?
We have a tradition in this country of the presumption of innocence, and that means that you shouldn't be subjected to surveillance unless you're suspected of wrongdoing. And this really turns that presumption on its head, because it's saying we're all suspects by default unless your bank says that you're not. So it's a really worrying precedent that's being set there. Technology
is infiltrating our lives everywhere in terms of how we're monitored, how we're followed. Is there a pattern emerging here, do you believe, of, for example, with COVID passports? We saw Tony Blair once again resurrecting his plan to make us all being monitored with a potential threat to our civil liberties. We recently heard another plan to give all British citizens ID cards because we can't control our borders. Are we being nudged into gradually accepting that one day we just have to face facts, we'll have to surrender and admit that we will all be monitored digitally in the future?
It does seem like we're on a slippery slope, and we should ask ourselves before it gets too far what we're willing to tolerate and which rights and freedoms we're willing to give up. When there is an infringement on our privacy, it should be where it's necessary and proportionate, and not just because it makes the government makes it easier for the government to administer their own problems.
Now, Jasleen, when I drive around London now, I see, to be honest, most days sort of mobile CCTV vans parked on streets in London, scanning the faces of criminals or potential criminals to try and catch bad guys. Some might say that's a necessary price we must pay. We should all be scanned to track down potential terrorists, rapists and serious criminals. But do you worry that that, again, means that all of us must be captured?
We're all being dragged into this net of both financial surveillance and physical surveillance. You're right that facial recognition cameras are on the streets of Britain and even being put into CCTV cameras. And we have to ask about the chilling effect that that can have on our freedom of association, freedom of expression and our privacy rights as well.
But a lot of people might think, do you know what, it's now getting so bad, you know, we literally don't know if we have jihadists walking among us. We don't know if people are coming over the channel, escaping, fleeing, you know, the Ayatollah's regime in Iran who wish to cause us harm. So are we at that tipping point? Proponents of recognition, facial recognition of IDs, we might say, do you know what? I'm afraid we all do have to surrender our rights, because if it's the best chance of catching serious criminals who wish us harm, that's a price I'm afraid we have to pay.
Well, one of the questions with all these new technologies that the government wants to rely on to solve these administrative problems is whether they actually work. And by the government's own estimations, the bank spying measure will only recover 1.4% of fraud and error annually in this country. And we have to ask, is it worth giving up all of our rights and having this trawling net, making the banks an arm of the state in order to get back just a small fraction of that money?
Tony Blair's name always comes up on this channel during these conversations, and I have to say, it's never usually a good thing. What's his game?
I'm not sure. Tony Blair has been calling for digital ID cards both, back in the early 2000s, and now again this digital ID card, we're seeing it resurface. Back in the early 2000s, the No to ID the No to ID campaign defeated those proposals, and we're fighting again. We have a petition for the government to drop the plans to have a brick card, which would force all of us to prove our identity and have all our engagements with the state tracked and monitored. And we don't want to turn Britain into a Papers, Please society. A
lot of people say this is a gradual erosion to the point where we could be monitored and restricted in the future, as we saw during COVID lockdowns, astonishing scenes where you couldn't go to church or the pub or to a library without being a human barcode. Is that the way we're going, or is that just a conspiracy theory?
I hope not. Funnily enough, China is introducing laws to cut back on facial recognition, whilst we're rolling it out on our own streets. And so we need to have a serious consideration about whether that's the way we want to go.
Fabulous stuff. Thanks for joining us. And that's Jasleen Chagger, who's the lead and policy officer at Big Brother Watch. Now, a DWP spokesman, that's the Department of Work and Pensions, told GB News this: it is right that we modernise our approach to catching fraudsters and identifying overpayments at the earliest